Husband caught me in a trap. Now I'm fighting to win him back. My world exploded when I whispered those 3 words. Did I destroy my marriage forever? The confession still burns in my throat like acid. 3 little words, carelessly uttered, that detonated my perfect life into a million irreparable pieces. I thought I was being progressive, honest. Now I'm staring into the abyss of a broken marriage, a shattered future, and a love I may never reclaim. I opened a Pandora's box and unleashed hell on my relationship, and I'm desperately clawing my way back. Is it too late? Here's my story. I've been with my husband, who I'll call Skylar, for 7 blissful years, married for 5. We met in community college during our 2nd year, forging a connection that felt destined. Skylar pursued a 4-year degree in business administration through a remote program offered at our local community college. Now, at 27, Skylar is my rock, my best friend, my everything. I'm 26, and we were excitedly planning to start a family later this year, envisioning for beautiful children, 2 boys and 2 girls, filling our home with laughter and love. Our families adored us, and we had what I genuinely believed was a fairytale marriage. Then, like a slow-motion train wreck, I made a colossal mistake. I developed a work-husband relationship with a delivery driver from one of the big 3 delivery companies, someone I'll call Jaden, for the sake of my remaining shred of privacy. Jaden, a vibrant 25, had been delivering to my office for about 2 years. I can't deny it, we clicked instantly. It wasn't overtly romantic, but there was an undeniable spark, a gravitational pull that drew me to him. Every delivery turned into at least a 10-minute conversation, and I found myself eagerly anticipating his visits, making excuses to be available when he arrived. One day, our chat veered into dangerous territory. Jaden, his eyes searching mine, confessed that he had a personal question to ask. He prefaced it with a heartfelt apology, worried about offending me or jeopardizing our professional relationship. I, foolishly emboldened, reassured him and urged him to ask. I feel a very strong attraction to you, he admitted, his voice thick with vulnerability, and I was wondering if you felt it too. His audacity stunned me, a wave of heat washing over me. Ashamed, yet undeniably intrigued, I took a moment to collect myself. After what felt like an eternity, I confessed that, yes, I felt it too. Jaden continued, his voice dropping even lower. If you weren't married. He trailed off, leaving the unspoken question hanging in the air. The conversation ended abruptly with a strained thank you for the compliment. He left me reeling. The following week was a minefield of awkward silences and curt exchanges. The guilt was consuming me, the realization that I had crossed a line settling deep in my bones. Even as Skylar and I continued our loving married life at home, the insidious guilt gnawed at me. Let me be clear, I have always been completely and utterly happy with Skylar. He's the perfect husband, friend, and lover. I thought he felt the same way about me. He was my ideal. But then, the unthinkable happened. I started fantasizing about having it all. My devoted husband and a tantalizing connection with Jaden that transcended simple workplace banter. Later, I learned that this is often referred to as having your cake and eating it too. Initially, I found the concept repulsive, utterly ridiculous. I was certain Skylar would never agree to such a thing, and even if he did, I dreaded the potential damage to our marriage, the estrangement from our families. Weeks turned into months. My married life remained idyllic, but the phantom of Jaden's confession haunted my thoughts. One day, I stumbled upon a blog post by a woman in an open marriage, titled It Doesn't Hurt to Ask. The article detailed how she, despite loving her husband, yearned for a connection with a man she met volunteering. After 2 years of suppressed feelings, she finally broached the subject with her husband during a long car ride. To her surprise, he was intrigued. 4 years later, they claimed to have a stronger, happier connection after exploring other lovers through opening their marriage. Her story resonated with me with terrifying precision. It mirrored the exact desire that gnawed at me, the question I was too afraid to ask Skylar. Then, one fateful Sunday morning, as we were relaxing at home, casually chatting and browsing the internet, I decided to take the plunge. I was just reading this online article about open marriages. I began, my voice trembling slightly. What are your thoughts on them? Skylar looked up, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. You mean couples sleeping with other people? He questioned, a hint of skepticism in his tone. I affirmed, reiterating the question. His response was blunt, unwavering. Skylar found the idea repulsive, adding that if someone wanted to sleep with other people, they should just get a divorce. It's becoming increasingly common here in the US and other Western countries, I offered, weakly attempting to defuse the situation. But his expression was a mask of disgust, a clear indication that I had struck a nerve. His reaction settled it for me. I vowed never to bring it up again, determined not to jeopardize our seemingly perfect marriage. Weeks later, as Skylar and I were snuggling in bed, basking in the afterglow of a perfect evening, he dropped a bomb. Who did you have in mind when you brought up open marriages last week? I froze, lying on his chest, unable to see his face. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. What are you talking about? What do you mean? I stammered, trying to regain control of the conversation. Skylar clarified, explaining that he had read studies indicating that when a woman brings up the subject of an open relationship with her boyfriend, it usually means she already has someone in mind. His words struck me like a physical blow. I was stunned, utterly shaken to my core. I know you too well, Skylar pressed, his voice laced with a painful knowing. Just be honest with me. I can tell you're hiding something. I could have stopped there. I should have stopped there. But instead, I remained silent, turning my head away, finally admitting, I've never cheated on you, and I never would. But there is someone at work I might think about if we ever discussed an open marriage. Tell me about this work friend, Skylar demanded, his voice suddenly cold and sharp. Reluctantly, I began to describe Jaden, recounting our encounters, including the moment he confessed his feelings for me. I carefully omitted that I felt the same way. Skylar's next statement pierced me like a shard of ice. You know, he said quietly, technically, you've already cheated on me. I recoiled, defensively protesting. I haven't cheated, nothing happened. Your relationship with this Jaden guy is what's known as an emotional affair, Skylar retorted, his voice flat. He explained the term, which I had never even heard before. I listened in stunned silence, frustration building with each word. Finally, Skylar suggested we end the conversation, citing his early start the next day. He drifted off to sleep, but I was left wide awake, consumed by guilt and dread. I grabbed my phone and dove into research about emotional affairs. Article after article confirmed Skylar's assessment. My relationship with Jaden wasn't just harmless flirting. It was a full-fledged emotional affair. The guilt was overwhelming. I felt like I had betrayed my husband, shattered the very foundation of our marriage. Unable to sleep, I went downstairs to make tea, eventually falling asleep on the couch around 4 a.m. Skylar woke me with a kiss at 6:45 a.m., his usual cheerful self. I'm heading out for work, he said. As usual, I kissed him back and told him I loved him, but this time, the guilt weighed heavily on my mind, making the words feel hollow. Days passed in a blur of strained smiles and forced normalcy. We made love a couple of times, but the spark felt diminished, tainted by my secret. Then, one night, as we were lying in bed together, Skylar abruptly remarked, if you really want to, I'd be willing to try an open marriage. Why are you bringing this up now? I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. He explained that he had been considering our earlier conversations, reasoning that if it was something we both truly desired, we should explore it. I promised I would never do anything to jeopardize our marriage, our love, I vowed, desperately trying to rewind the clock. You are the most important person in my life. Skylar remained silent, his gaze unreadable. If our love is strong enough, it will withstand anything, I added, hoping to convince myself as much as him. A mutually agreed upon open relationship wouldn't be considered infidelity because we both agree to it, I blurted out, feeling desperate. Consider our marriage open, starting right now, he declared, his voice surprisingly resolute. Blindsided, I urged him to slow down, emphasizing the need for ground rules. He laid out his terms. We had to disclose in advance who we would be sleeping with and when, and we had to share the details, without being too graphic, afterward. There were no exceptions, and complete transparency was paramount. I reluctantly agreed, adding my own conditions. We would keep our open marriage private, and we would pledge to stay together, preventing these extramarital affairs from destroying our relationship. Skylar refused both of those conditions, his jaw hardening. He refused to discuss it further, simply stating that he wouldn't agree to them. Alarm bells were ringing in my head. This felt completely out of character for Skylar. Despite my unease, I snuggled closer, and we eventually drifted off to sleep. The idea of an open relationship filled me with growing discomfort. I tried to suppress it, to focus on living a normal life. I avoided talking to Jaden at work, limiting our exchanges to mundane topics like the weather or our respective workloads. Then, one day, Jaden asked if something was wrong, saying he truly missed our conversations. I lamely explained that I had been busy at work and at home, not having much time to talk. Then, impulsively, I considered telling him about my newly open marriage. Oh, how I wish I could take that decision back. I asked Jaden to join me for a drink after work, feeling it wasn't appropriate to have such a conversation at the office. We met at a local tavern with a patio, perfect for the warm spring evening. After explaining the situation, I directly asked Jaden if he would be interested in a relationship. Without hesitation, he said yes. Despite respecting my boundaries, Jaden admitted that he had been waiting for me to change my mind, that he had been dreaming about me for months. We spent the evening flirting and making plans. We decided to meet at his apartment the next day for our first romantic encounter. I made it clear that I had to leave by 6:30 p.m. to return home to Skylar, who was still my top priority. That evening, I returned home and prepared a delicious meal for Skylar. After dinner, I told him about my conversation and plans with Jaden, assuming he was still on board with this open arrangement. Although appearing surprised, Skylar replied, "Oh, yes, all right, so, you're meeting him tomorrow." I reassured him that we could still cancel if he wanted. "No," he insisted, his eyes strangely vacant. "Let's do this." Unlike his usual affectionate embrace, his hug felt stiff and distant. I attributed it to the strangeness of the situation. We barely spoke that night. I focused on my own work while Skylar retreated to his office. I tried to initiate an intimate conversation before bed, but he claimed he was too tired and just wanted to relax. The next morning, I woke up to find Skylar already gone, a text message explaining that he had an early meeting he had forgotten to mention and would see me that evening. This was unusual, but I brushed it off and went about my day, choosing a particularly nice outfit, knowing I would be seeing Jaden after work. I texted Skylar throughout the day, but he didn't respond. I briefly considered calling off the date with Jaden, a decision I now bitterly regret. At 4:17 p.m., I received a text from Skylar. See you tonight. Love you. Relieved, I took it as his blessing and proceeded with my plans. I'll cut to the chase. My encounter with Jaden was fierce. There was clearly no love involved, and it wasn't nearly as fulfilling as sex with Skylar. But there was a raw physicality, an undeniable thrill fueled by the forbidden nature of what we were doing. After an hour and a half, I left Jaden's apartment and arrived home shortly after 6:40 p.m. I was shocked to find that Skylar wasn't home yet. I was almost relieved, allowing me to shower and wash off the scent of Jaden's cologne. Despite the fleeting physical satisfaction, I was overwhelmed with regret, guilt, and shame. I felt dirty, as if I had violated every sacred principle of my marriage. A fierce internal battle raged within me. I prepared a simple, elegant meal, lit candles to create a romantic atmosphere, determined to make it up to Skylar. I wanted him to know how much I loved him, that the encounter with Jaden was meaningless, purely physical, and could never compare to the happiness and love I shared with Skylar. I hoped we would make love later that evening, reaffirming our bond. By 7:30 p.m., Skylar still wasn't home. When I tried to call, the call went straight to voicemail. I texted him, letting him know dinner was ready, but received no response. As 8:50 p.m. approached, I grew increasingly concerned. I continued to call and text, leaving messages, but still heard nothing. Around 9:30 p.m., Skylar finally texted, "Don't wait up, I'll be home late." I immediately texted back, asking where he was and who he was with, but he didn't reply. Exhausted, both emotionally and physically, I eventually drifted off to sleep just after midnight. The sound of the shower running in the guest bathroom jolted me awake. Curious, I went to investigate, finding the door locked completely out of character for Skylar. He didn't respond when I knocked. After 10 agonizing minutes, Skylar emerged, wrapped in a towel, and casually said, "Hey, how was your night?" I mumbled that everything was fine, and he immediately cut to the chase. "Did you have sex with Jaden?" I recoiled at his directness, urging him to use a different word. Reluctantly, I admitted, "Yes, Jaden and I were together." Then, I turned the question on him, asking where he had been. Skylar confessed that he had gone out dancing, spent the night at various bars. I detected the faint scent of perfume on his clothes and grew suspicious. "Who is she?" I demanded. He retorted that he didn't have to identify her because they hadn't shared a bed. Though shocked by his admission, I was even more offended by his tone and language. Skylar's angry words pierced me deeply. He had never used profanity when speaking to me. I questioned why he had showered in the guest bathroom. He coldly explained that until I had undergone 2 STD tests, he would be using the guest bathroom and bedroom. His words crushed me. This wasn't part of our rules. I had ensured that Jaden and I had used protection during our encounter. "Have you never heard of oral HPV or herpes?" Skylar sneered. "Until you're cleared, I won't come within 6 feet of you." Think of this as my personal take on social distancing. Distraught and crying, I declared that I wanted to end our marriage right then and there. This was the last thing I ever wanted. "No way," Skylar countered, his eyes hard. "I'll have my turn now that you've had yours." Then, with chilling indifference, Skylar stated that he was going to bed since he had an early meeting and needed to rest. Despite my renewed tears, I sobbed on the couch for the remainder of the night before finally falling asleep. When I opened my eyes, Skylar was gone. I tried to contact him throughout the day, but he didn't answer. He texted, "Don't wait up for me." I left voicemails, desperate to reach him, but received no response. I felt like I was losing my mind, knowing that I had likely destroyed my marriage. I didn't see Jaden at work that day since there were no deliveries. But at 4:30 p.m., I called him, asking if we could meet that night. He noted that I sounded upset. When we met, I told him I wanted to end our short-lived relationship, admitting that it had been a terrible mistake. I confessed that I only wanted my husband, that I loved him. He was understanding, offering only a single request. "All I ask is that we have one more connection," he asked. "After that, I will only ever speak to you at work, and it will be brief and unremarkable." Our final hookup lasted less than 10 minutes and consisted solely of a basic position. Afterward, Jaden remarked, "That was awful. I'm sorry." He acknowledged that the entire affair was a colossal error and that it was not his fault. "You just lay there like a tree trunk." As I prepared to leave, giving him one last hug, I asked Jaden what he meant when he said, "I'll never understand women like you," before I left. But he simply muttered, nothing. No comment, with a look of utter contempt on his face. I fled, sobbing all the way home. How could I have been so foolish? I had ruined my marriage for nothing. I felt dirty once more, convinced I was the most idiotic person alive. It was 1 a.m. when Skylar finally returned home that evening. I was beyond exhausted, realizing that I was solely responsible for the destruction of my life. Skylar repeated his behavior on Friday, leaving before I woke up and texting, "Don't wait up for me." The coldness and distance between us shattered my heart. I longed for our mornings, our evenings, our weekends together, cooking together, taking walks after dinner, talking about anything and everything. I desperately missed it all now that it was gone. I texted Skylar, requesting to speak with him the following morning. All right, he replied tersely, as long as it's first thing. I asked where he was going, but he ignored me. I'm leaving for the day. It was 1:30 a.m. when he returned home. I simply lay in bed, sobbing silently. Without a word, Skylar immediately went to bed after showering in the guest bathroom again. The following morning, I got up early to await his arrival. He entered the kitchen at 7 a.m., sitting at the table, staring at his phone. The atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. I approached him, sat on his knee, and whispered, "Look at me." He looked away, but I gently took hold of his face, meeting his brown eyes. "You have my undying love," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "I am so sorry for the terrible choice I made. I promise, I will stop at nothing to win back your love and trust." Skylar remained silent, staring at me as if I were a stranger. "Are you still in love with me?" I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. "I'm not sure," he replied, his voice devoid of emotion. "I can fix this," I sobbed, my voice cracking. "I don't think you can," he countered flatly. "You orchestrated all of this, didn't you?" I said, suddenly angry. "You set me up for this divorce." Skylar denied it, but acknowledged that, based on what he had read, he realized our relationship was probably over the moment I brought up the idea of an open marriage. "Why didn't you just tell me to stop talking to Jaden?" I demanded, desperate for answers. His response devastated me. "You can't make someone be faithful," he said coldly. "You are either monogamous or you're not, and it is clear that you are not." He stood up, stating that he was leaving. Despite my desperate pleas not to ruin our marriage, he said he would be back after midnight when I questioned where he was going. "Tomorrow is Easter Sunday," I reminded him. "We are scheduled to leave at 7 a.m. to visit my parents' house. We spend every holiday with them because they adore you." "I'm not going," Skylar said flatly. "What am I supposed to tell my parents?" I begged. "Tell them the truth," he replied with a shrug. He packed a gym bag and left the house without another word, ignoring my repeated pleas for him to stay. I feel utterly devastated and broken. I would appreciate any guidance or advice regarding actions I can take to save my marriage. I am particularly interested in hearing from those who have had similar experiences with open marriages and whether a couple can overcome such a betrayal. Have you been able to successfully reconcile after an open relationship? I appreciate you listening to my story. I'm going to bed now, hoping to find some peace. Update 1. I want to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who has responded with comments and encouragement. It has helped me get through these past few days. Many of you have rightly chastised me and called me derogatory names, and I understand. Easter Sunday and today have been two of the worst days of my life. When I arrived at my parents' house, they immediately asked, "Where's Skylar?" I lied, telling them he couldn't make it due to a work emergency. I didn't want to ruin the family gathering. Initially, my family believed my story, but as the day progressed, they grew suspicious, noticing that I wasn't calling or texting Skylar as often as I usually do. To quell their concerns, I sent several fake texts and pretended to receive replies from Skylar, reassuring everyone that he was still busy at work and would call me tomorrow. The truth is, he never texted or called, not even to check if I had arrived safely. It broke my heart. On Monday, I had planned to stay the night at my parents' house and discuss our marital issues, but I was afraid they would be angry and despise me if I told them the truth. This morning, I finally confessed everything, and it went exactly as I had feared. They yelled at me, called me terrible names, and said that I wasn't raised this way. When my sister was called over, she began to lash out at me as well. I told them I knew what I had done was wrong and that I had learned from the experience and would never repeat it. I informed them that regaining Skylar's love and trust would be my only priority moving forward. Ultimately, they told me they loved me and would pray for our marriage to be saved, even though they were furious. On Monday night, I drove home alone. I texted and called Skylar throughout the day, but he didn't respond. According to a note on the counter when I arrived home, he had gone to Florida to visit his parents and would be back on Sunday. We had planned to go there together in early May, and I felt sick knowing that plan was now shattered because of me. I loathe myself. For now, that's all I can say. I'm just so incredibly unhappy and defeated. The fact that I'm no longer crying frightens me. Tears no longer seem worth shedding, given the depth of my pain and regret. Update 2. I didn't anticipate posting again for almost a year, but I felt compelled to provide an update due to the community's overwhelming interest. I have some good news and some bad news. The first piece of bad news is that I am divorced. The divorce was finalized back in December. Skylar ultimately concluded that he couldn't remain married to me after I slept with another man. He claimed he was ashamed to be seen with me in public and that he would never be able to trust me again. He claimed that he regained his masculinity after the divorce. I disagree. He never lost his manhood, and only our families are aware of my brief relationship with Jaden. Nobody else knows anything. The good news, the amazing news, is that Skylar and I have resumed dating as of last month. It's been incredible since Valentine's Day, when we reconnected. Our physical intimacy is off the charts, much higher than when we initially started dating 7 years ago. But we only see each other when he wants to, which has been around once a week. Skylar has stated unequivocally that this is merely a physical arrangement and that we will never be a couple again or get married. I'll take what I can get, but I'm not entirely comfortable with this. I want to get back together with Skylar. I want to have his children. I won't baby trap him, so don't get me wrong. I just want to have kids with him, with or without getting married. I've considered how we could divide custody and still make it work. I don't want children with anyone else. I know it might seem insane, but I love him. I understand that pursuing this would likely jeopardize any future relationships I might have with other men, but I only want Skylar. That's all I have to say for now. Unless something significant happens, I doubt I'll post again. However, I would love to hear your thoughts on my situation. Do you think that my decision to date Skylar is insane? Would I be better off moving on and finding someone else to start a family with? P.S. Jaden has never been an option. I simply made a terrible mistake with him, and I will never do it again. Thank you for reading. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.